Salutations, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and all you goblins in between. It's your friendly neighborhood goblin babe here with my first ever how-to video. Today we'll be working on shading and coloring. For convenience sake, we're going to use a piece that I've already completed and made a time-lapse of. So say hello to our model, office worker Kitty. Our co-stars today will be these pins and tools. First is the Lasso Fill tool. This one is really helpful if you're lazy like me and don't want to manually fill in your line art. Second up are my main pins. What matters most is having one pin with nice sharp edges for your clean, neat lines and a soft tip pin for your softer curves and some of your shading. Coming in third are the Yotti pin and Easy Hair shading pin. These two make coloring and detailing your hair way easier. Every other pin after these are completely optional and not very necessary. Other things I've used in this piece are the 3D office desk model and the airbrush tool. For more information on the pins and 3D models I used in this piece, links will be in the description below, so check them out after the video, okay? But enough about those, let's get right into it here. I'll be breaking down all of the layering I have going on. You don't have to use as many layers as I do, as I am a save file error waiting to happen. These first three layers here are multiply layers. They'll be above all the rest of your work and are used for ambient lighting and casted shadows. This is my file for all of my line work. I like to section my line art out into things like hair, body, outfit, face, etc. You get the gist of it. Again, you do not have to do it this way. I just found it easier to go in and fix mistakes later and to add tones on top of my lines like this. I enjoy using the airbrush tool and a clipping layer above my lashes layer to give a pop of color and realism, but we'll get into more of that later. This here is my color folder. It's for all of the color and tone layers for my character. All of those red highlighted layers are the layers that have been clipped to my layer at the bottom, which is my base tone layer. That is where you'll be using that Lasso Fill tool and where we'll be using all of our shading and coloring know-how. The file at the bottom is our background file, and it's for all of the background details and colors. It doesn't matter as much since I tend to merge all of the layers together willy-nilly there. Going back to our line art folder, a few key points I wanted to touch on that might help you make your artwork feel smoother or more realistic are the lash line layer, the irises, and the brows. Here, once you have finished drawing these and your hairlines, what you're going to want to do is to take all of the parts of those layers, the lashes, irises, and brows that are in the hair, that would be covered by the hair if you have any, and you're going to select them on each of their individual layers using the lasso selection tool. Then what I want you to do is copy those parts from the layers, erase them from the original layer where you've lassoed, and then lower their opacity by 50% on all of your layer copies and merge them back with their originals. But we aren't here to talk about lines, are we? No, we're here for coloring and shading. So why the hell am I bringing up lines? Well, because later on when you're coloring, you're going to do the exact same thing with some of your color clipping layers. So follow me, my corporeal beings, and we'll tread through the fog of my mind and process. So, as you just saw, my color folder is placed directly under my line art folder. This is because we're going to make the line art folder our reference layer by clicking the Make Reference button. Right here, the button that looks like a lighthouse of some sort. After this, in your color folder, you're going to make a new layer for your base tone. This is where we'll be using that Lasso Fill tool. Go to the settings of your Lasso Fill tool and select Use for Reference Layer. Then simply lasso the entire area you want to fill and voila, instant base tone filled. You can go in with the wand selection tool afterwards with the settings set to all layers and clean up the part where you don't want any color to be and get rid of it. After that's done, we'll be making two main clipping layers. Make two new layers, set both to clip to layer below. This is a handy dandy mouse tool we'll be using a lot. And now label one shadows and one highlight, as this is what these layers are going to be. Switching right over to my time-lapse for this piece, you'll see we're starting right off with our shadows. It's important to note that you do not have to go as in-depth as me. I like to add shadows wherever I think they should be, lowering the opacity and merging it as I go. I'm adding shadow to her hair first and then to her tail, body, outfit, and chair. Once I feel like I've shaded everything that I want, I go back over everything and add highlights on, you guessed it, my highlight layer. I do this pretty much the same way, willy-nilly and with feeling, wherever I feel like highlight should be. After that is pretty much where the real fun begins. I start by adding layers under my highlight and shadow layers for skin tone, blush, and everything that makes her skin the colors that I want it. Then I go in and blend the tones together using the blurring pin effect. I like to go back in and add extra highlights here for her skin to give it a glowy feel. I want her to look like she uses lotion and lip gloss regularly. You know what I'm saying? Bitch is hydrated. Now keep in mind, we're still clipping all of these new layers to the main base tone layer. Once I'm done with the skin, I go in and do the same with everything else. Moving on to her hair here, this is where we'll be using that Yotti and Easy Hair shading pins. So second verse, same as the first, adding layers for depth of tone. I wanted her to have sort of a Maine Coon gray cat vibe. So I'm adding shades of light brown, white, soft yellows, and even dark purple. You never want to use actual black because it makes the color feel flat, and that's not what we want. We want depth. I'm laying down the colors with that Yotti pen and then blending them out with the Easy Hair blender. I'm then just using the airbrush tool to add a soft layer of dark purple over the outer edges and going back in with my soft brush to add more highlights where I see fit. I use green to accent her eye color and again some soft yellows. I'm adding more shadows to the inner parts of her ears and then starting on her brows. Psst, hey, me again, Gobbo Babe number 1. Remember how I showed you how to make it look like the line layers of her eyes and brows were behind the hair? Yeah, we're going to use the same technique here. Grab that finished brow layer using the wand selection tool, copy it, and put it above the hair layer, and then lower that sucker down to 50% before merging it with the hair. You'll end up doing the same thing for your eyes, nails, hand, face, basically anything behind the hair that's not meant to be totally hidden. Cool? Cool. Now I'm working on her mouth and teeth. I like to add light pinks and reds to the inside of the mouth, as well as a soft glossy highlight using that soft-tipped brush. You don't have to make mouths mouth-colored, of course. Sometimes I like to make them blue or green even. What matters is adding more than just that one shade of red. For the love of goblins, please add some purple and pinks or even yellows, anything to give depth. We hate a flat tone. This is digital art. The amount of layering you can do is practically endless. Coming in next with the fit, we're layering down more base tones for our skirt and shirt. I chose a navy blue skirt and an off-white pink shirt. This is again where we'll be using that airbrush tool to add darker tones and shadows to the outer edges of her clothes, and then I go in for a blur of added smoothness. I then like to add a nice soft highlight with the airbrush using either the light pink or a light blue to give a more realistic feel to the fabric. Moving on to the final touches here, we're doing her eyelids. I actually saw someone do this on TikTok and I haven't stopped since. Take the color of your choosing. I went with red because I'm obsessed with blush tones, and make sure it's a darker tone. It'll really make the sclera, the whites of the eyes, pop. I'm using the soft brush for this as it has its own sort of layering effect. Then go in with your highlight. I'm actually using a soft yellow here for mine and put it into the middle of the lid. Using the blend tool now, blend the edges of your highlight into your darker lid color. Once you're happy, go ahead and blur the outer colors to make it blend with your skin tone. And Viola, beautiful eyelid coloring, super cute and gives a glowy feel. Now I color the bows and add whatever details I have left that I wanted to add. For example, this is where I now go into my line art folder and using that airbrush pen and a clipping layer, I add a vibrant red or pink tone to all of my body and lash lines and lower their opacity to about 25 to 50%. Lastly, with the background, this is where I add color to everything and make the graphs for the computer screen. This is where I use that Unreadable text pen and I use the crumpled paper pen for some of the trash in the bin. Once I'm done with the background, I make a duplicate layer of it and set that layer to a toned layer. Then change the color to a dark pink purple and merge it with a new layer so I can lower the opacity without screwing up the dots, and finally merge it back with the original layer. There's probably a few more things that I've done here that I might have forgotten to mention, but other than that, I really hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching. I'll see you lovely cryptids next time!